Hey everyone, it's MG from Computer Science 294. Let's go ahead and break into a video about less, L-E-S-S. We previously had a video about CSS, cascading style sheets. That is an external or sort of remote or at least a separated version of the inline style and the internal style sheets that we had, and that was so that we can change things on our screen, on our browser, in our window. We can make these paragraph elements look different or act different or whatever. Before we talk about a sort of a web development framework, something like Bootstrap, which combines several things like CSS, HTML, styling, maybe some JavaScript together so that it's easier so that you don't have to code everything from scratch. Before we talk about that, it's important, I think, to go over some of the sort of foundational technologies in it. Of course, there's CSS. We've already dealt with that. HTML, which, of course, we've been dealing with that the entire time. But Bootstrap and other things like Bootstrap use things called like dynamic CSS or dynamic style sort of languages. So less is a dynamic style sort of language. It allows us to write code a little more almost objectively or dynamically, rather, using variables and constants, and then using a preprocessor or a precompiler, rather, whenever the sort of browser goes to load the page, it inline just immediately processes the page into processes your less script into CSS, a CSS file. Now, ideally, we don't want to do this, right? We don't want to have the browser do all the hard work of like, go get this file and then run some JavaScript code and convert this into less or whatever, convert this into CSS. We don't want to do that every time because that will be slow if you have a lot of really complex sort of, complex sort of code in your CSS file. So what's actually recommended is that you run some sort of prepile or precompile or sort of thing and take in that less file, convert it into CSS, and then just store that CSS with your website on your hosted platform. That way, you still have the benefit of writing your code in less sort of syntax or SAS syntax, but the browser doesn't have to convert it every time. So the way we use less, the way that we get less is we go to lesscss.org. So give me a minute to pull this up and pull it over. Don't know if you can see that, but lesscss.org. Go in the getting CSS, get less.js. It'll tell you what to do and where to get it and all of this stuff. So anyway, do that, follow that. I've actually already downloaded less and put it on my system. So I have this tiny little less folder. I've got an index page, that's what we're seeing right here, with a bunch of class and a bunch of IDs. And then I've got a less file that's just blank right now inside my styles directory. And inside scripts, I got the minified version of the less.min JavaScript. We haven't really approached JavaScript, though I'm sure some of you have heard of it. JavaScript is effectively the third part of the triangle of web development. The first two, of course, being HTML for structure, CSS for styling. JavaScript sort of complements both of those in being sort of the functional change things around on the web page, accessing DOM, doing things like that. So we will eventually get to JavaScript, but again, it's not going to be as in-depth as I think some of you really want it to be, because I don't want to turn this into sort of a programming course. We have so many programming courses out there in the curriculum, and I want this to be more foundational, more conceptual. So that's why we've been redoing the same assignments. I wanted to show you that you can use these bare bones pieces to do the same thing, and every time you do it, not only are you learning what you've already done and you're just copy and pasting it fine most of the time, but you're learning a little bit more. So it's not very important that we understand what this is, or I'm sorry, what this says. We could look at it. I mean, I could open this up and we can look at all of the crazy. Again, it's minified, so it's all going to be all just kind of copy big giant blocks of whatever. We don't need to really worry about it. We just need to know what it's doing and how to use it. So I've already copied this out, but in the header section of our web page, we want to, give me a second, we want to go ahead and say that this is a less version of a style sheet. So notice how a style sheet CSS is replaced with style sheet / less, and then it's going to be CSS, text CSS. and we're going to give it the directory and then what I've called it. This may vary on yours. Again, remember that what this is referring to is it's referring to my styles directory and then this style.less folder right there. So, or directory or file or whatever. And then I say go ahead and make sure that we have the scripts less.min.js, and it's a type JavaScript. So that's cool. I go ahead and save this and refresh it, and notice that absolutely nothing changes, right? Because we haven't done anything. We haven't done anything to make it change. So what we're going to do is we are going to just do a really arbitrary sort of assignment here. I've got, notice these paragraph elements, right? Let's go to style.less because we don't ever need to do anything with this other than we just need to know that this is class test. That's all that this guy is, this entire thing. And each one of these paragraphs are 1 through 6. So that's all we really need to do. Because this is going to be kind of a short introductory to less. I want you to go out and kind of experience and find things. Haven't decided if I'm going to do an assignment yet or not, but with less, but you need to go ahead and kind of search for things on your own for this because I'm just exposing you to it right now. So first thing out the gate, if we were to just code something for all paragraph elements, we were supposed to say something like background, and I'm going to do in background color just because it's easy. If we say background color equals red, and I save that, well, it affects all the background colors. So out the gate, we sort of understand that this is still CSS. I wrote basic CSS just now, and it worked fine. So we can use less as CSS, and no, there's nothing there. There's no diminishing return other than the fact that we had to do that script entry and we had to include JavaScript and we had to change that. So that's kind of a pain. And it works with, if we were to just do something for, say, one. Let's say we wanted to change the background color of this guy to orange. Well, it did it for 1, and we can do it for 3. Let's just do all the odds and all the evens. That's like a pretty simple thing. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to code that one, and I'm just going to stop it. Well, no, I'll do 5 too, because let's see, and we'll change this to a 5. All right, so I changed all of the evens to, or all the odds rather, to orange. All the evens are still red, as well as just paragraphs. If I want to change all of these, right? If I want to change, let's just say orange. I don't want orange. I want, let's just say 222255, whatever that is. All right, ugly blue. If I wanted this ugly blue purple thing, and I wanted to make it for all of these, I'd have to copy and paste this around. So a lot of keystrokes, a lot of clicking, a lot of doing stuff, right? Not the way we want to do it, right? We want it to be sort of just super simple. Because if I wanted to change this, say I don't like 5.5, I like 3.3, I wanted to make it a little more black, or maybe I wanted to make it 9.9, maybe I want to make it a little, well, that doesn't really help. Say I wanted to make it that ugly blue. It's almost the link color. I'd have to change it for all of these, right? That's not something we want to do. So what less affords us is the ability to do something like this. We're able to make a variable and then call that variable down here. Sorry. Give me a second. Did I spell that right? Ugly blue. Oh, whoops. Looks like it's not working. Wonder why? Maybe you have to type this all the way at the top. And I keep on forgetting to put this. Oh, there we go. Yeah, sorry. It was a combination of either this wasn't at the top or I was just typing this all stupid. Anyway, so now what we can do is we can come back and we can say ugly. Now we lose code completion there, but it's fine. say ugly blue for all of these. And now if we want to change ugly blue, we could do it to something like, I don't know, something like that. Notice it changes it to, I don't know, poop green or something. Anyway, we want to change that name too. But notice how now we can establish our own sort of style. We don't have to worry about having, you know, just these hex values memorized, these RGB codes memorized. We can just do that, right? But it doesn't stop there. That's like just the bare bones, just the easy piece. We're not going to do any functions with this, but you could actually take some CSS3 functions, like you know, say you wanted to make things rounded, or you wanted to make well, let's do that. We haven't messed with this at all yet. Let's say we want to. How do I do this? Let's say we want to, and this is per the Wikipedia page. So let's say we want to. Before we do this, hold on. Let's go and do this, right? We want to affect change on the evens and the odds, but separately, right? We don't want to. We don't want to call 1, 3, and 5, and then 2, 4, and 6 every time explicitly. So what we can do is we can say something like even ones, and then odd ones. And then we can say, okay, it's going to be a list of these, right? So what is this even? 1, I'm using pound 1, pound 3, and pound 5 because they're IDs, remember? So I could do that, and then I can say pound 2, pound 4, and pound 6. I can dyslexically spell it backwards. Cool. So these are now lists. So what I can do is I can get rid of this stuff, and I can say, I can break it out, right? I'm using curly brackets. I can say for the object, even ones. Notice how nothing changed, right? Now, what I'll do is I'll make sure that we're doing it the right way. So I can say even ones, and I can say, well, hold on. Nothing changed, and that's bad. Even ones. Even ones. Pretty sure this is right. Yeah, that looks good. Though I don't think I can have that. Okay, so this is another thing. It freaked out. This is nice because during the JavaScript parsing, we get, I guess European, we get an unrecognized input, and it tells us line 13, this OD, it's not real. So whenever we hit that, it changes it a little bit. So we get even ones, which I actually named wrong. So these are technically odd ones, and these are even ones. So now when we save that, we see 1, 3, and 5 go back to red, and we see that the other ones aren't. So now if we go to odd ones, if we say odd ones, and we can say the background color is, we don't have to make a custom variable. We can say something like, I don't know, aquamarine, sure, whatever. Notice how it changes it. So this is really neat because now we can do things like if we define some common IDs or some common classes, and we feel like we want to have some uniqueness to the class names, or maybe some of the class names all do the same thing or they need to be the same thing. Normally we would have to we'd have to sort of build these all down, right? So if we inspect the element, it's going to kill my my live view. But if we inspect the element and we expand this, we can see that we're getting the style from the P up here, nothing crazy there. But if we go to say even, not only do we see the P, which is kind of nullified, it no longer works because it happens afterwards, but we see pound 2, comma, pound 4, comma, pound 6, and then the background color, which was really, really neat. Like we didn't have that before. We would have had to we'd have to write that from scratch. This would effectively be exactly what we'd have to write in CSS. Now it's just this sort of nice, easy one line. Granted, we have like 2 other lines up here to deal with that, but that's really nice. So the idea is that this sort of breaks out and makes things a little more functional, a little easier to deal with. Likewise, we can do like text align. let's do text align, let's do these guys left, and then not that we need to justify, or not that we need to say that, and then text align, let's do these guys right. So there's jumping on either side right there. We can, you know, change the padding. Pretty much anything you wanted to do before, you can do now. Make those stupid looking, and we can make these less stupid looking. You know, so we've got a little bit of stuff right there, and it just combines it all down and renders it all down, and it's really, really nice. Let's see if we can do something like this. Let's say we wanted to make, let's say we wanted to make something rounded, right? I'm gonna straight up copy from the Wikipedia page. Let's say we wanted to make a rounded sort of, and I think you can do this to paragraph. Yeah, so I took that off. Let's say we want to make even ones rounded or odd ones rounded. If I want to take even ones and I wanted to make them rounded, it's as simple as saying rounded dash corners. And I'm effectively taking and rounding. You can see how now it's sort of rounded. It's rounded over here and it's less rounded over there. For all of these, let's go ahead and say I wanted to override this, because notice up here I'm saying if I pass in a radius, if I don't pass in the radius, here's the default for left, right, up, top, and bottom. Otherwise, and then apply these things. If I don't pass anything, these are what get applied. If I do pass something, then that's what will be applied. So if, let's say we wanted to make all of them, I don't know, 10. So I do rounded corners, and then I pass in 10 pixels, 10 pixels, 10 pixels. I probably could just do 10 regular, and then I'll say done. And it says, oh, there's some problems. So where are the problems at? Rounded out corners, padding face, unrecognized input. Where did I do it? Oh, and I forgot that. So anyway, now we see that these guys are full-on rounded corners, which is very, very nice. We didn't have to do any of that crazy work. So now if we look at the inspect element for this guy, we'll see that we get border dash radius, which that's the based off of, I wasn't using WebKit, this is Safari or iOS, and I wasn't using Mozilla because we're using Chrome. So it just did border dash radius, and then it applied the radius setting. So I didn't have to do that. I didn't have to type that. It was just make these rounded corners, do it. And I think that's where I'm going to end this, because it's so, well, okay, there's one more thing that I really liked before I end it. Let's say we want to change the text size or the link size of, let's go back. Let's go to the thing up top. Let's say we wanted to say paragraph, and then all of the actual anchored elements in there, right? We can stagger and nest things, right? So let's just say we want to make the background color of those. Let's say we want to make it orange. Let's see. Oh, and I turned off dynamic code thing. So when we turn that back on, we see that all of the links are now, you know, because I've specifically said for all paragraphs, for all A elements inside paragraphs, make these background colors orange, right? Which is really, really neat. Now I'm pretty sure that I have to override it explicitly in here because of the conflict now. So I say make them white. Oh, that's weird. So it looks like it's changing. It's not changing the A. It's changing the background color completely. So it's ignoring this, which I'm not sure why. Maybe it's because we're using a list. I don't know. That's strange. Maybe there's a reason you're not supposed to use that way. Well, okay, it doesn't really matter. The whole point is that you can nest these. I imagine when you're not doing some dynamic list-based whatever, you can nest things just fine. So again, check Moodle. I'll probably in the announcement for this, I'll go ahead and talk about if there's going to be an assignment. It'll probably be like redo assignment 1 again because everyone loves that. So the wiki page for less is actually pretty helpful, and I'm not going to go over SAS, but SAS is very similar. In fact, we can see right here how we can define certain, certain variables or whatever in constants, and then apply them, and it would sort of compile down or prepile into these things. So pretty neat. You can do loops, which are very, very helpful. So again, I don't want to turn this into a programming course, and CSS is already kind of a bummer enough without having to turn it into, basic sort of basic programming. But it is nice, and if you do want a career in web development, this is what we use this all the time, right? In Bootstrap and in Foundation. So we're not going to do anything with that, but definitely look it up. This might be something that I assign to a group later in the semester. Anyway, so go ahead and check this video out, or thank you for checking this video out, rather. Watch for new videos, watch for the assignments and the announcements in Moodle, and I'll see everyone later. If you need to contact me, remember mg@scalu.edu. Make sure your subject says something relevant. I don't got time for all that stupid, irrelevant subject line or whatever stuff. So, see all you guys in class or online. Bye.